Hi, welcome to Tech Ranch, a place where we learn and earn technical skills in the most efficient way. Let's make coding fun. Servlet API Tutorial Chapter 4 Servlet Email Application Demonstration. What do we learn in this chapter? Servlet Email Application Design, Demonstration, Servlet Email Application Implementation and Execution, and Homework, a practice project. So basically in this video you are going to learn all about how we can implement email application using Java based web app technology that is called Servlet. So before we get into the application, let's make sure you have all the required software downloaded and installed in your systems. So first thing first, we need the Java, JDK and JRE, latest version you can try 9. Server Tomcat web server, which is available over the internet, and IDE, integrated development environment to write the code in Java. It's Eclipse Luna. This is for Java Enterprise Edition, a version for Java developers. And database is an optional, or dynamically you retrieve the email address. At that time we need the database server. So let's see. Java you can find out in oracle.com over here. You just need to make sure what type of specification of your operating system it has, and based on that you need to download it. If it is 32-bit processor, then you need to make sure you're getting it 32 point or 64-bit, or it is for Mac OS or Linux or Windows or any other operating system you're trying to use. So choose accordingly. Tomcat web server. This is the link where you can find out this file, and here is the versions. You can try. Just download it from there and follow the instruction to install it in your system. Eclipse IDE. This is the one which you can get it for writing the code. Eclipse IDE for enterprise Java developers. You need to make sure you need to take accordingly Windows 64-bit, Mac Cocoa 64-bit, Linux 64-bit, and accordingly you can find out for 32-bit too. So download installation is all done through the over the net and install following the instruction. For configuration, what you have to do, if you are in Windows, you need to go to system, from control panel, go to advanced system settings and environment variables, system variables, and set the class path variable to Java home. When you install, it will by default go to the program files and make the Java installed in this home directory. So first thing, what you have to set the path java_home. This will help your Java to run from dynamic, or you can say relative path. Just in case if you're trying to run the Java program from IDE, at that time the Java home directory execute. So this is how we can make it dynamically execution from any relative path. Tomcat home, that is the Tomcat home directory. This is the place. That's how you have to set the path. Class path will define JRE bin. Basically Java run environment and binary files. So this is the path you need to set. And for Tomcat, the same, Tomcat 9 bin. This is the path you need to set for the class path. And we are going to use some external libraries. So you need to set the path for those external library jar files like Servlet API and Mail API jar file, Java Mail API. We are going to learn about it in detail later. But for now, just to understand how to configure JDK, Tomcat and Eclipse. To check whether your Java is installed successfully, all you need to go to command prompt, go to the Java home directory using cd command and pass the command java-version. If it execute and tell you the version, that means your Java is successfully installed and configured. And in case it says that Java command is not recognized, that means you need to set the class path once again and try and debug. So once the IDE is done, from the link you can just start making a Java application. All you need to set the project preference and set the build path to JRE. Go to binary directory. So let's see about email application. So before we go to the email application implementation, let's see the design, how it works. So when we say about email, that means you are making a communication from one user to the another user. So here I'm taking an example of one-way communication from TechCrunch to the user. So TechCrunch sending an email to say thanks to its users. So how it goes? TechCrunch has a server where he writes in a servlet application. Whenever the user from Hotmail, Yahoo, Gmail, Rediffmail, any web hosting email server, user is going to reach TechCrunch, and TechCrunch is saying things to the user from this web email host service. Now it's very interesting to understand how it goes because it's a one-way communication. If you see the application design here, you have these parameters: to address, from address, user ID, password, subject, message, host. Now, why we need user ID and password here? Since we are going to use the email service, so web host to make sure that you are validated or verified email address. So for that they need your user ID and password. So validation and verification to provide the authorized access, we have to check and authorize the user ID by using myauth.java. Basically this design is for dynamically created email service. So I made it in a different blocks. You can have it in a single block and make it email application, but this you can implement it later. So myauth basically helps to authorize web email hosting service. Mail.java will work on the transport your message. So it will deal with your authorization connected to the mail, and from there mail will work on the properties of the mail. We'll see that in detail later. Email servlet demo is just a pure servlet where we are going to write the code for servlet. Index.html is starting thread. Web.xml is your servlet properties, deployment descriptor. Activation jar, Java Mail API, Servlet API, and SMTP jar file. These are your external libraries. Out of this, your activation jar is for authorization. Java Mail API is for Java libraries to send an email, and Servlet API is for servlet. And SMTP basically provide you the mail protocol. We can start looking at the code. Let's start with the web.xml. This is your deployment descriptor. So we have email servlet test, that's my servlet name, servlet application. Next we have servlet name. Here I just made it in a package, so I just make it in a organized source file. So app is my package. Mapping, it's simple servlet as you can see. So servlet app, email servlet test is my path, and index.html is my welcome file list. Simple servlet, and that's their respective deployment descriptor. Index.html, what I'm trying to do here, just a title, welcome to TechCrunch, and simple title. Form, in the form tag, I'm mentioning the name of the ID, name of the parameter, ID of the parameter, and action. This action, here you need to give the servlet along with the path, and method type is my post. 2, the address of the receiver. Subject, you need to just mention the subject. Message, a simple mail message body, and we are giving the name to it so that it can be maintain the session and pass these parameters to the servlet. Now let's take a look of myauth.java. Package javax.mail authenticator, javax.mail password authentication. This is the library of activation.jar file where it contains authenticator class file. MyAuth class inherited the authenticator class, and it contains the get password authentication method from the password authentication, and that's how it's inherited and implemented the method accordingly. So this particular class is only for authentication. So basically this username and password is nothing but the username password you are going to pass from your mail.java, that is the from address. Now let's take a look at the mail.java file. This particular class file only work on the sending mail. So while sending the mail, you need two address, from address, username, password, subject and message body. So this is the method we implemented here, send mail, which has the arguments to subject and message body. This is from and pass is the username password. We are going to authenticate it from my auth. Then it's a boolean variables. You can have your code implemented number of ways. So this is one of the ways where I have come up with a particular design which is dynamically you can implement. The reason, there are three different blocks to work in a specific task. They have a specific functionality, and that's what make it easy to maintain the application code. Here let's start with the mail status false and setting the properties. Now first thing, properties, put this particular properties is setting the SMTP host. Since we have Rediffmail, Yahoo, Gmail and number of webmail hosting service, so here I'm going to set up Gmail. This is the most commonly used. So if in case you are using any other web hosting, you can particularly use that SMTP host address here and set the property accordingly. Now what is mail SMTP socket factory port? Every server has a specific port to contact and make the socket communication or a connection. So we have a specific port mentioned and it dynamically changes accordingly. The properties of the SMTP web host address, we make sure we set the correct port to communicate and make the socket connection from the web mail host or a server. Now once this two things, host and port, is done, properties to put mail SMTP socket factory dot class. This particular class helps to maintain the SSL socket connection, highly secured protocol they use for socket communication. Mail SMTP authentication true. We are going to have the auth implementation here, passing the from and password variables or arguments here from this. So this is your from address. So this is sending from the TechCrunch. That's my point. Now we are going to authenticate it, getting the arguments to the my auth, and from there it is authenticated. Debug, mail debug true. Session, maintaining the session is very important here because mail communication is basically need to pass the parameter, need to send the message. So messages need to be maintained in a session. Try message new MIME message type because it is gonna be a context, a string, a long context. So make it in a multiple input message. Message set from an internet address to. Now so far we have done for from. Now this is two part. To the recipient address we need to set all these parameters, set subjects and send date, because it's a regular email communication, so we need to maintain the subject and the date and other parameters, message body and the message. Now this is the class dot method transport dot send message is defined and implemented in your library. All you need to just call it. So once it is done, mail status is true, and we have to make sure we are writing the piece of code in a try catch block to maintain the efficiency of your coding. And once it is done, then mail status will be true or false accordingly. Now let's see the servlet. So we done my auth, we done my mail.java file. Now this is email servlet test.java. Package app, import java IO, java x servlet, and this is the regular important packages. Public class email servlet test, which inherit your HTTP servlet class. Protected void do post. Since we had the post type of method in the HTML, if you have seen, you need to maintain that particular type of content or type of method in the form action. So we are going to implement do post method and passing the request and response arguments and throwing the servlet exception, just regular. Response is in a text /HTML type. Print writer out your response, whatever the response will be, we just write it down and print it out. Now, string to, this is to address. What we are going to get it from the HTML. Maintaining the session, getting the values using request.get parameter to. Subject, get parameter subject. Message, get parameter message. All these three values we are going to get from the HTML. Now here we are going to just and making an object of mail class. Now what it will help you, we can simply call send mail method and passing the argument to address, subject and the message. So to will be your address to the recipient and subject in hi and thank you message. So if mail sent is done, then mail sent successfully, else print mail failed. So let's see the demonstration of email application execution. So I have opened my Eclipse Luna. This is my Eclipse. So I already have an example for you to just demonstrate the execution of email. Email servlet test. This is my application. Here is my index.html where I have passed your subject to win message and web.xml deployment descriptor, your servlet and my auth and my mail.java file is over here. So all you need to do is just right click, run as. My server is already configured, Tomcat server. I'm using 7 version, you can use your 9, and there you go. So you can see here it's processing, it's calling the Tomcat server here. So once it is done, it will go to the welcome file list index.html from the deployment descriptor. You see, and this is my index.html, but it is not showing me the file name because we have mentioned in a servlet. This is a security fact to address my user who tried to reach me and ask me for this. So I want to just communicate to my user saying, hi, thanks for reaching me out. We will provide you resources. Message, that's my subject and my to. Now these three parameters as being handled in the session, maintaining in the session from action and passing it to the servlet. When I do the send, mail sent successfully. Now we need to check the email. So this is my inbox and the user inbox, and here you see TechRanch 2019 demo. This is the message I got it. Hi, this is the end user. Thanks for reaching me out. We will provide you resources. TechRanch. So this is the execution of email application using servlet just for one-way communication. You can implement it accordingly in a. So here I wanted to show you one more thing, what we can do to include the external libraries. So you have to go to your application, which one you have created. So here I have created email servlet test application. Go to the properties and go to the Java build path, and here is your all the external files. You see, this is the add external jar. So from here you can add your activation and your classes 1-2 for JDBC connection functionality, or Java Mail API jar file, or SMTP. So all those files, jar files, you can include it in your application from here. Go to Java build path. We created, and this is our web.xml. Write down the deployment descriptor of the application, and you can have your index.html here. Add files, and now you can work on this accordingly. Just write the code and start working on it. I just gave some text. Welcome to Tech Ranch. And if you see this, this will ask you for the servers, and I just used the latest one. Now, sometimes this is what I wanted to tell you, one more thing here. Why it is not working? Because it using the same 8081 port, and we are already running one more server which is linked with this port. So what you can do here, go to the server, and here is the server.xml. You can change the port from 8081 to 8082. You see? But make sure you are changing to the one which is not in used. But for that, you need to restart the server once again, and let's see if it will work. Ta-da! So this is what the few important facts to implement email. Import SMTP library to define the transfer protocol. Simple mail import SMTP library to define simple mail transfer protocol methods. Import Java mail library to call or to use all the Java based mail API. Implement Servlet API to maintain the Servlet application. Authentication implementation, it's better to have it in a different piece of code for a particular functionality. So authentication implementation is needed. And sometimes another important fact to be remembered is firewall settings for debugging. Sometimes firewall settings for the security reason block the email communication. So once you are confused, like what is going on, why my email is not sent it to the recipient, so make sure the firewall settings for your email servlet is not blocked. So this is the important facts for the debugging for email application. Now homework time. This time we have online courier service, where we have user ID, password for the recipient, mail, email address, order ID, and status. So what you have to do in this application, make a servlet application named online courier, where courier service can send email notification to the customer for delivering the order. So once it is done, then you will get a notification, okay, your parcel is delivered successfully at your address. So this is what the functionality. It's a one-way communication, just like the TechRanch communication. That's just like we did it. For more resources or source code, you can contact us techranch2019@gmail.com. And thank you so much for watching this video. So far in Servlet, we have covered what is Servlet API, session management, and today in this video we have covered Servlet application demonstration for email. Now next video we are going to cover advanced Servlet, where we learn about Servlet configuration, context, and filters, and request dispatcher, which include and forward controls of the Servlet application. And Stay tuned for more upcoming videos. And thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notification of the latest videos. Let's make coding fun. Thank you.